start out with like a real quick primer on something on finance because we're going to be both speaking off the cuff a little bit and talking about things that have like very rigidly defined definitions in certain circumstances, right?
All right.
So I think it's worth noting, first of all, that generally speaking, when you say economics, you're actually referring to like three entirely separate fields of study, and that's why it confuses a lot of people. So you've got basically three different types of economics. You can have econometrics, which is you're trying to find what number does what when another number does something else, right?
Okay.
So this is people trying to figure out, all right, if gold goes up, what happens to X, Y, and Z, right?
Right.
And this is actually something that is very heuristically useful, especially for like traders. But if you're trying to look for anything as far as like, does this explain how the economy works? I mean, probably can explain certain parts of it, but as an in general thing, it's like trying to tell a water current from a bobby. You might be able to get an idea, and you might be able to get a real good idea if you're looking at a whole bunch of them, but you're not looking at the current, you're looking at what the current is doing to something else to try to figure out what's going on. And then there's economics as a philosophy. It is the study of how people value things, right? And then there is economics as a history, where you are trying to rationally describe how people transacted themselves in certain situations. Like, and you have these three separate fields of study, but they all overlap because, like, you need to study economic history to actually describe anything in an econometric model or to try to make any sort of philosophical argument. You need some sort of philosophical argument to underlie, like, what model you're going to make if you think that, you know, one thing's going to go up and the other thing's going to go down. You have to have a reasoning there. And so,
Well, and can I also add in, like, I think it's important to add in as well that, like, when we're talking about economics, right? Economics, right? It's a soft study, right? It's a soft science. It's not a hard science like, you know, say physics or math or, you know what I mean, like I don't know, like astrophysics, whatever it is. It's not a hard fucking science, as it were, right? It's a soft science. And the reasons why there's so much disagreement between economists about what to do and what like reality is because of the fact that it's full of individuals who don't really study other soft sciences that give you an entire picture, right? You know what I mean? Like, no, but like economists don't study demography, you know what I mean? And fucking geography and geology and all the things that go into, like, if you wanted to study the economics of, say, like fracking, you'd need to understand geography, you need to understand geology, you need to understand like the political structure, you need to understand like the economic structure of, you know what I mean, like whatever area you're in, the capital structure. You need to understand, you know what I mean, liquidity flows and hydraulic flows and inputs, outputs, logistics, fucking piping, right? You know, you have to understand like how like oil itself works. Like I was in Black Pigeon Speaks joint the other day, right? Yo, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I started like doing my thing. I started throwing in super chats, right? And like, yo, Black Pigeon Speech out here hollering me out, like, yo, this dude knows some shit, right? And like, I explained how, like, you know what I mean, like, in the United States, in one of my super chats, how like, our fracking oil is very, very light, and so therefore we import, like heavy crude in order to mix it to make certain things, right? And there was people in the chat going, why would you ever mix light crude with heavy crude? Like, what are you talking about? This guy doesn't know shit, right? And
because otherwise you can't make fucking gasoline
or diesel, right? like kerosene, heating oil. Literally, like I had somebody the other day who had no idea what heating oil was.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That what's Peter Zion call it? Freaking chicken sweet.
Chicken gas and shit or whatever it is, or right. Yeah. You can or white chicken oil or whatever it is, right? Like you can wave white chicken in front of it, and it just turns into gasoline, right? But like, so this this mentality of economists, it being a soft science, where like you can't be a good economist and not know shit else but like economics, right? Like all of the best economists in the world, like they know other fields of study. And that's important. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong. I think another part of this issue is that this isn't limited to just economists, right? This is not an isolated problem. The way we train people is retarded in general. Like, you need here's one of the main problems. Like, you heard me break down how economics is really 3 different fields of study, and that's important when you're trying to break down an economic theory into its base components and figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And that is super important for these types of discussions. Not so important if you're just trying to make the numbers work, right? And so what you found, and what you'll find quite a bit these days, is that we don't really have any multi-disciplinary studies in any sort of real sense of the term, and it's something that our academic system is just completely not geared for.
Well, yeah, I mean, because like when it comes down to it, right? Like, because like this is what the liberal arts used to be, right? Is like you studied everything, you know what I mean? Like you studied philosophy, you studied, government structure, you studied, economics, you studied warfare, right? You study all these different things, and that led you to being a decent, aristocrat. Like there's a reason I say the things I do, right? Like I understand what things, like where they came from. I think that's like what I try to do on my channel the most, is like stand here and go like, hey, look, let me explain to y'all where this that like what the big thing is like, if you understand like what this was set up to do, you'll understand like how we got here today. And I think that's important, because like a lot of people think that like things were just set up to be evil, right? And that's where like I get in an argument with guys like Pops or Mike or whoever the fuck, Justin Kuhn. Oh my god, like that guy's annoying the dog shit out of me here recently with his fucking nonsense, right? Like it's not that like they were all set up to be fucking evil. It's more along the lines of like, is just through a process of elimination, things become more and more stagnant and more focused, right? So like it become more and more efficient. That's what capitalism does, is it makes things very, very, very efficient, but it doesn't make them very good.
Right. Well, and we also kind of have to have in the discussion there that like people are literally just wired differently, and so you can have people who think that they're doing the right thing and they're doing something freaking evil. Like to bring it into more of a fantastical realm just for a second, because you mentioned Pops. I was reading some bullshit whatever and had a pantheon, and it was explaining that the god of the undead, while it's an evil god and all that type of nonsense, it was somebody who just went insane from seeing too many good people die, and he's like, you know what? No, I'm just not gonna let this happen anymore. And if you don't let people die, bad things happen, even if what you're trying to make happen is a good thing. And that 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 describes a lot of aspects of our society where, you know, there's a saying in economics that once an indicator becomes a benchmark, it no longer is a good indicator, right? Where you have stuff like the CPI here, where you say, all right, the goal of, you know, monetary policy is to keep that CPI low. Well, then the first thing you're going to do is start fucking with a number. Right, you're not actually
like
going
oh, we're gonna what we're gonna do is we're gonna teach to the test. It's kind of where we're at. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, we're gonna stand here and like, hey, look, what we want you to do is make this number be good, right? Whether it's high or it's low or whatever it is, like that's your job, is to keep that number there, and like that's what they do. And people go like, oh man, it's fucking evil. Like, nah, like, yo, we're teaching to the test. That's what we want motherfuckers to like. That's what we told them to do. Right, like the Fed's original policy was stability and fucking, you know what I mean, high employment, right? You know what I'm saying, like max employment or whatever it was, right? And then like it fucking changed, right, where it said like, you know, fucking manage inflation, and then, you know, manage good employment, right? Maximize employment, and then it went to manage inflation. Yo, that's all the Fed does, is manage inflation. That's it. That's what the Fed's there to do, is to manage inflation. Simple, right? Because like, yo, if we hit maximum employment, you cause inflation. It's really, really, really a basic thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the other thing that people like don't really grasp about the monetary system is that after 2008, our monetary system broke, right? Like it no longer functioned in the same way, because what happened was after 2008, after Bear Stearns collapsed, right? Every bank was like, well, like, what the fuck are we doing? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they started making better decisions, but they started covering their ass more, and they stopped trusting other banks as much. And this kind of gets back to like the 3-card Monty type thing, where it seems like it's alchemy, because what it is it's a scam that nobody really caught on to until 2008. And then in 2008, what happened was all the people who were running the scam simply realized that they too could be on the short end of the stick, right? That nobody stopped doing it. It's just that the people who kept doing it realized the implications for themselves.
Well, so let me say this too, right? And I have this up on the screen right now. You know what I'm saying? Is what I think one of the biggest problems, and like the biggest indicator of all this, is the MBS products, right? Is the fact of the Fed owning like 35% or 40% of all MBS, right? I think that's an issue in the end of the day, right? I think that's ultimately like the culmination of this, is that what will lead to the downfall of the entire system is what is holding up the entire system right now, right? It's the... Go ahead.
You're not wrong, but let's also be real here. What you're describing is not an entity that is a bank. You're talking about a dumping ground for assets. That is different.
No, not a dumping ground. It's not a dumping ground for assets. Don't get anything misunderstood. Yes, all right. It's a lender of last resort, right?
No, like, here's the problem.
Okay,
like,
go ahead.
All right, so the way the 3-card Monty thing goes is, and I'm just going to describe using bank A, B, and C here real quick verbally. I'll try to run through it real quick. And this is all just private banks, right? And they just have a fractional reserve requirement, right? So what happens is Bank A just lands Bank B $1 trillion, and same way the other way around, right? And that way they both have the same amount of assets, same amount of liabilities. And then they can use that to trade into the repo market or back any assets they need or trade that to another bank. The only issue there is that when they interact with that third-party bank, that third-party bank has to take either the asset from either of the two banks. So what is happening is that Bank C is taking an IOU from Bank A that has been given to Bank B, right? Or vice versa, right? So that only works as long as Bank C is willing to accept those IOUs. The Fed and the U.S. Treasury are the same way, except what's happening is that the Fed and the U.S. Treasury are A and B, and everyone else is party C, and the U.S. government has the ability to force you at gunpoint to come up with U.S. dollars, right? So, like, understand that the way our economy had been running up until 2008 was that the banks themselves were the money and were the liquidity. The banks were the money, and now that we don't have as many banks that are not as willing to lend, we don't have as much money. That is why we haven't gotten the amount of economic growth or inflation that we did up until like 2008.
Okay, all right, hang on, all right. So
you sound like you're gonna say something.
All right, yeah, I do. All right, so like here's where my brain. I turned my mic back on. Right, I actually walked away at the beginning of your thing because I had to grab something to drink. But all right, so here's the mentality. This is where I get down to, like, economists don't study anything the fuck else, right? And this is why, like, I talk about things like MBS and the Fed, right? So it's really simple. The Fed's holding 40% of the United States MBS products. MBS, for anybody that doesn't know, is mortgage-backed securities, all right? And mortgage-backed securities are, really simply put, it's a bunch of loans lumped together and then, like, given to investors as an asset to be able to stand here and, like, take more loans out against. Problem is that when you have a shrinking demography, right, and you have a bunch of boomers hitting retirement who only have $50,000 saved and they need $45,000 a year to retire on, and they're going to rely on things like Social Security, tends to be a bit of an issue. And then, you have a underclass that, is not able to afford the homes and isn't getting the pay or the raises to be able to buy these homes. You're going to end up having a whole bunch of mortgages that are, like, going under and defaulting. And, so therefore you're going to have a shit ton of need on the market. Now, usually this is a self-correcting system where, when, like, houses go in the market, they get really cheap, people buy them, then they go hot again, the price goes back up because demand goes up because of the fact that the price goes down. Really simply, fucking basic thing, right? Like, prices too high, people stop buying them, prices come down, people start buying them, prices go back up, right? It's a cycle. It goes up and down, right? That's how the health shit usually works. Now, with an ever-expanding population, you're going to have more and more houses being built and more people to buy houses. We don't have an ever-expanding population. We have a population that is now stable at this point and actually going down a little bit when it really comes down to the amount of the U.S. population who's able to work, due to the fact that you have a mass of baby boomers who are all going to retire at the same time. Really simple thing, right? It's basic mathematics, basic demographics, basic, like, understanding of society as a whole. Now, with that being said, with the feds holding 40% of these MBS products, that means that, you know, houses aren't going to go back down in price. Because if, like, you hold the product that is the loan on that house and individuals default, the house doesn't go back onto the market. It doesn't get foreclosed on. That's the problem, right? And this is what's going to end up crashing everything because of the fact that, like, if these fucking houses can't fall in price and people aren't able to afford them, then the entire society collapses because basically the entirety of the American dream just kind of goes the way of the dodo bird. It's that simple. And that's kind of where I'm at. You know, I mean, that's my mentality as far as things are concerned. And this is where MMT gets things completely wrong because, like, again, they're only studying, like, MMT, as we've discussed, you know what I'm saying, like a bunch of times. It is descriptive, not prescriptive, right? It's something that describes something, but it's not something that you can use to, like, fix things. It's really weird. You want to chime in on this one? Was I wrong? Was I wrong in any of that, by the way?
Like, there are a couple nitpicks there.
Go ahead.
Specifically, like, you at no point in time did you ever give, like, the motivation for the Fed coming in here and buying all of these assets, right? So, like, the motivation.
Oh no. The motivation is just, like, to keep up the system. Right, because if these are all right. So, like, MBS is basically, okay. So what you would call a liability, like me and you, right? You know what I'm saying, like our loans, right, or you know what I'm saying, like our outstanding debt, is what banks call an asset, right? Because, like, that is payments that are due to them. So, like, it's their asset, and so these MBS products are assets to them. These mortgages, these loans that they have outstanding, are assets to them. Right? Because long term, those interest payments that you're going to make on that loan are money they're going to make. And so therefore, it's basically a future motherfucking payment that they can commoditize and sell off as being a future payment. It's kind of like if you know what I'm saying, hit the lottery or have, like, a structured settlement from, like, a car accident where you can sell that off, right? For, you know what I'm saying, like a portion of it, whatever it is, like 60% or 70%, and then somebody else gets 30% of it. And they collect the payments from then on, but they'll give you a lump sum of cash up front. Same type of deal. But these assets, these MBS products, which are worth trillions of dollars, right, are the underlying motherfucking piece of what they're using to gamble on to keep up the entire system to allow individuals to be retired because, like, that's what they're using to have the gambling on their fucking 401ks and shit to keep the money moving forward. Am I hitting it properly?
All right. Yeah. Like, you hit intention, you didn't hit mechanics, which was, like, you're not wrong as far as why they're doing it that way, but, like, you are missing the point of, like, why mortgages, right?
Oh, because they're stable.
No. Like, here's the reason, and I'll tell you it. It's because they are liquid. Right. So the reason why these mortgage-backed securities got popular was because they were as liquid as U.S. Treasuries. So
okay.
So what could happen was that, like, you could use these to back loans. You could sell them in a heartbeat. And the reason why the Fed started buying these was because while the Fed, like, here's the thing, like, the Fed doesn't actually do money. They look at numbers, and if numbers start going down, they start making noises and start yelling at bankers. That's what they do. Right? They don't actually understand the monetary system in a lot of cases.
Okay, like, all right, and then wait. Let's touch this too. Let's touch this too. All right, so, like, when these type of things end up going down in value, right? Say, like, people stop buying houses or people aren't able to afford their mortgages because capitalism is not a zero-sum game, but some of it is, right? There's only so much money you can take out of one pocket and put it into the other in some of like fucking capitalism. Like, for instance, when you have $147 a barrel fucking oil and people are paying $4 and some change at the pump, motherfuckers are going to take that expense out of something the fuck else, right? And if like they reach a point where they can no longer like cut back and like tighten a belt, mortgages start to default. Kind of the premise. Just like companies like, hey, look, if you're a small truck company, you know what I mean, and you can't afford to float a loan for fucking diesel fuel, you know what I mean, and like you are just ass out and have no way to fucking continue to operate because you have a fleet of trucks that you have to pay for on a regular basis, you're going to be in bad shape when fucking fuel hits, you know what I'm saying, like some ridiculous fucking amount, $150 a barrel, or, you know what I mean, like $5 or $6 a fucking gallon and shit. And therefore, you're going to start laying off workers because you just don't have the money to be able to afford them to continue to run that fucking vehicle. Kind of a premise, right? And when people get laid off, they're not able to pay their fucking bills, or, you know, they lose their jobs, or people, like, businesses go under, motherfucking money disappears out of the goddamn economy. Mortgages start collapsing, and then like the whole system fucking collapses. That's why it is that they're buying these fucking MBS products, because they're like, hey, look, we want to. They said we want to get ahead of the game. Problem is that they've been ahead of the game since 2009. They haven't held less than 22% of all mortgages in the United States. That's kind of the premise. And so with them holding on to these fucking mortgages, it allows the system to remain fucking liquid so that these assets aren't on motherfucking banks' books, or like the banks still have assets to trade with is kind of the deal. Am I missing this here?
You're not wrong. The other, just one more analogy to hammer in there. There's a lake in my neck of the woods that, like, the way it's set up is that, like, there's one crater and there's another crater, and there's like this kind of indent where they connect, right? And what happens when it gets real dry for a couple years is that the deeper one will just go bone dry, and the shallower one will stay full of a little bit of water. And so what happens is, like, the first couple of real big rains, once it starts getting wet again, it, like, there will be more water in the lake, but the water level will be lower. Like, you can have more stuff going into the system and it just washes out.
That's kind of my analogy as far as like what currency is, right? And I'm saying, when we talk about currency, we talk about the dollar. The dollar is not money, it's currency. But like, we keep using the word money interchangeably because we're so used to saying it. Right? But that's kind of what currency is. Currency is oil in an engine with fucking shitty O-rings, right? Literally is just blowing by all the time. And so what they're doing is when you talk about things like QE, right? People think that QE is, you know what I'm saying, like money that the people owe to the banks or whatever it is, or like they're giving out loans to the banks. That's really not what QE is in the end of the day, right? QE is basically like them standing here pouring quarts and quarts and quarts and quarts of oil into a fucking old, you know what I mean, 5 bad motherfucking like valve spring seats and shit, where it's just blowing by and just fucking smoking out of the exhaust. It just, America's engine just has dollars coming out of the fucking exhaust pipe. That's kind of what the fucking deal is.
You are underselling it, sir. What is going on is that we do not have an oil filter at all attached, and you're just trying to pour in enough oil at any one point in time that it'll keep it running without actually recirculating anything. Understand that the reason we've been the Fed has been continuously buying those mortgage-backed securities is because the market saw that, like, the demand can, like, it can just go no bid with no warning. And I don't know if you've ever, like, I know we had a conversation a little while back about what a limit down day is, right?
Well, yeah. I think actually like no bid would be better explained with the oil problem that happened in 2020.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? Where like
Where
all of a sudden like oil went to like negative $15 a fucking barrel and shit.
well, yeah, because if nobody needs it, then nobody's gonna buy it. And the thing is that like the markets are determined on the margin, right? Because what happens is somebody's got to cross what's called the bid-ask spread, where you know constantly at any point in time on the markets, there's going to be people who want to sell for a little bit more than whatever the current clearing price is, right? And whoever is trying to buy it is trying to buy it for a little bit less than whatever the current clearing price is. And so, like, markets go up when somebody taps out on one side and says, "All right, I'll pay the extra 20 cents a pound or whatever it is for whatever you want." And markets go down when the sellers tap out and say, "All right, I need money more than I want to just get more money for this," right? And so because that is the situation, like you get very, very profound effects from just not continuously having activity, because everybody like these mortgages make up like massive portions of these banks' balance sheets. Like they're basically underwriting the majority uh of all money market mutual funds, right? So this would be most people's retirement accounts. Like the the fact that you are able to trade, your Tesla stock for a Apple stock like the same day, and the bank is able to make all that equal out at the end of the day, is because the bank can sell or buy as many of those mortgage-backed securities from the Fed as they want at any given time. So they can just make it work out. Oh, we need more money, then we'll sell more of these. Oh, we need more assets, well, we'll just buy more of those, right? Um, and so
And you have to, and here's the thing, like you have to remember, like this is a big piece of this too, right? Is that literally like what the markets are trying to do ultimately, right? Is make boomers' retirements happen, right? And keep fucking businesses running at the same time. Because like the vast majority of businesses literally run day to day with their payroll and their inventory and their fucking what's that shit called, man? Fucking where like like you like buy shit to like make things with. Fucking
supply chain.
no. Like like if you buy like steel to like make fucking into like cars or frames or whatever it is, right?
Semi-finished products.
Oh man, listen. No, all right. Anyway, like all the shit that they buy and like all the fucking materials. There we go. Oh yeah, all the materials, like all the materials people buy and all the like the inventory that like Walmart sells and like all the material that all the goods that like fucking your grocery store has on the shelves are all bought on fucking credits. Actually fucking paid for in the end of the day, right? Like none of that's like actually like there. Right. So like literally like none of this is like actually being paid for by like re-up money. You know what I'm saying? Like this is all floating on credit, because you ask any business owner and they'll tell you that they usually don't get paid for like 90 days to 6 months once something is motherfucking done. Right. Like say like, you're in the trucking industry and you deliver a fucking piece of product or whatever it is. Well, you don't get paid for that shit until like 45 to 90 to like 6 months after that. Right? That's when that contract is settled. Right? And that's how most businesses fucking operate day to day. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, when you stand here and you deliver something in your business, wherever you work at, like TK, wherever, where TK works at, like he's not going to actually get paid for that. They're not going to get paid for that when they deliver it. They'll send them a bill and then they'll pay for that at the end of the quarter. right? You know what I mean? Because like that's how the hell shit works. And this is how business operates around like the world. And so like all businesses are floating on credit. And so they have to make that credit happen. And in order to make that credit happen, they have to like stand here and grow shit exponentially in the fucking markets in order to be able to have that credit available to them. And on top of that, you have things like life insurance, car insurance, health insurance, right? Which nobody's actually paying enough for all that shit to work. They take that money that they give them, that you give them, and they invest that. And then once they invest that, they grow that so they can sit there and have a massive pile of cash that's invested in the markets in things like MBS products that will continue to grow exponentially and allow them to be able to continue to have payouts. Just like right now, we're going to have a bunch of boomers who are about to die and they don't have the money to pay for the life insurance for all these motherfuckers who are going to die. This is how all this works. You're going to have a whole bunch of retirements and individuals didn't save anywhere near enough for, but you expect to be able to retire on it. Right? You know what I'm saying? And they're trying to make all that shit happen. And with all this coming due at one fucking time, the market is fucking collapsing behind it. And the feds are just, the feds and the Treasury and the US government and everybody in the world at the same time is all just trying to fucking print over everything with a fucking bulldozer full of money. And they just don't have the ability to do so. Kind of where we're at right now.
I mean, that is definitely part of it. I think it's also worth noting specifically that the price of housing is now determined primarily by the fact that the mortgage on it is easily sold and bought by bankers, right? Like that's where the value of the mortgage comes from, is that it is a liquid asset, not from the asset itself. That's why you're getting that's why you're getting these things be so ridiculously priced, because it's a liquidity instrument and it's being priced like that. Not like a house.
Right.
Right.
Like have you heard people bitching about Bill Gates owning a bunch of farmland?
Yes, I'm one of these people bitching about Bill Gates owning a bunch of farmland, partially because I know he's gonna grow a bunch of GMO crops on it, and he's gonna fuck over his neighbors. I guarantee you, he's
Okay.
gonna fuck over his neighbors.
Well, all right, I feel where you are, but like, do you know like why a guy like Bill Gates would buy a bunch of farmland?
I mean, there are a bunch of reasons. I'm sure he has a direct profit incentive, yes. I would also guess that part of it's that he literally has so much money that buying land is the best thing to do because they're
You're
not
not wrong.
making any more of it.
Yeah, you're not
And
wrong.
I would also hazard a guess that, like, on top of whatever legitimate reasons that you might give, and that I might give, and that I might agree with, I would also say that he's got like some Dr. Evil-esque plan that he's got cooked up that he's gonna do with it.
I have never seen Bill Gates as just some evil motherfucking billionaire. Like I'm not like everybody else.
Like,
I just don't get that mentality.
I said Dr. Evil, sir.
Look, y'all,
Like
I feel you.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't see him as being that type of person, right? Just as a whole, like Bill Gates, I think he legitimately wants to do good as far as shit's concerned, but he wants to make money too, right? And legit, like I think if I had the money to buy land, I would buy a shit ton of land, hold it for a little bit, and then just sell it.
Right. I would do the same, except I would cut out the selling it part.
Nah, because you don't want to own it. Like I don't want the headache of having to own it. Like let's keep this 100% here. You know what I mean? Like I don't want the problem of having to own the fucking land. Like I don't want the taxes and the liabilities and all the bullshit, right? I mean, because at a certain point, taxes are going to eat through your profit margin. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong, but this might just be because I'm white and you're not, but I feel like the responsibility to be a warden of nature
Well,
right?
I
Like
feel where you are. I'm not saying he's gonna like. He's not gonna go out there and just like, just start dumping chemicals onto the shit. He's not gonna go out and like, oh, you know what, man, it's
are
gonna
you
be.
kidding me?
This is a
That's
great place just to
exactly
dump my batteries. Like, he's not gonna do
no,
that.
no, he's totally going to be just dumping retarded chemical fertilizers and phosphates and bullshit on it. Don't act like just
A
because he's
hundred
not.
bucks, $100 says he hires some fucking farming company, right, to farm the goddamn land, make it, like more profitable, try to get the margins up on it, and then sell the shit to somebody the fuck else. That's what the fuck he's gonna do. It's like BlackRock. BlackRock, same type of shit. When they're buying all this fucking land and property and shit, they don't want to hold it. Fuck out of here. Nobody wants like. Dude, why would you pay over fucking asking price and then sit here and motherfucking pay the property taxes on it, pay the upkeep, and motherfucking have tenants in it that are gonna rip your shit apart, and then sit here and motherfucking take that motherfucking shit and fucking.
Okay. Like, let me stop you there because here's the fucking crazy thing. And this is actually something that is real controversial in my neck of the woods because there are people who are losing, well, not necessarily losing, people whose farms are getting bought up because of this. So what's going on is that there is a massive effort to what they call rewild the West. What they're trying to do is they're trying to buy enough land around the cities so that you can actually have like a cohesive wildlife uh, ecosystem that is native to America, right? So
Right.
what they're doing is they're buying up just like all these farms, all these ranches, all these things, and they're just tearing them down and letting the whole thing go fallow. And they're doing stuff like reintroducing wolves, reintroducing all sorts of nonsense, which you can have an opinion on that or not, but the fact is that there are people who are just buying shitloads of land to just sit on it to turn it into a nature preserve.
Well, do you get a tax write off for that? Like, do you get the tax deference off of that and some shit? Because it doesn't make any sense if you have to pay the taxes on it.
I'm sure they get some sort of deal from it, but like it is factually true that there are people actively trying to make that happen. Like they're trying to make the fucking buffalo herds come back. They're all trying to do all sorts of crazy bullshit, and they're actually
I'm
making.
not wrong. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that as a whole.
Yeah, that's because you don't have to fucking get bison out of your fucking field, do you?
Well, we have again, we have we have bison farmers here and shit too.
Yeah, but god damn it. You should know this. Domesticated animals are not the same as wild animals. A wild bison will just plow through buildings and not give a shit. Like a domesticated bison is like that thing looks like it could possibly shock me. I'm too lazy to deal with it. I'm gonna go eat over there. Like these are different animals, sir.
I feel you, but again, I'm not wrong. I'm not mad at motherfuckers who want to rewild shit. You know what I mean? I'm not as a whole mad at that. I'm a nature guy. I'm a nature guy. You know what I mean? I'm a guy who likes the outdoors. You know me. I'm in the woods all the time.
Like the thing is, they like ban people from going in there.
Well, see, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Like it's not an actual nature preserve. It's a fuck people type thing. I do know that you're on this ideology of nobody among the global elites is actually trying to depopulate, but there is a certain faction of people who just hate humanity. Now, I'm not saying that they are calling every shot everywhere, but if you look at some bullshit that happens on the margin, then yeah, that's actually something that can be explained there. Um, and that what I'm trying to get at is you're not 100% wrong, but there is nuance there, and these people aren't insane. It's just that they've got a sampling bias, right? They're seeing, between 1 and 30% of the picture, and they just assume the rest of it. And everybody does that because
here's the mental, right? So like there's a difference between like white people and wasps, right? And like, so up here, all right, how do I put this? I was just watching The Sopranos today, right? And they had the Italians and the Native Americans were going to war over Columbus Day, right? Which is, like fucking basically it's two lower class fucking peoples standing here beefing over, like the pride of their fucking people and shit. And we have in the Northeast, right, like this beef between Italians and Irish and WASPs and Germans, and like, well, the Germans tend to be like pretty much fucking neutral because, like, the Germans are just German, right? They go to work. They're Americans in the end of the day. But like, the WASPs are a different thing up here, right? Like when you talk about WASPs, they're like the knit sweater around the shoulders, button down polo shirt, khaki shorts, playing golf and tennis, driving a fucking BMW, right? That's, to us, when we say WASPs, like that's what, like, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, right? That's the individuals that we talk about, right? And like, but a lot of people blame on like the Jews, like, like, oh, the Jews run Wall Street and the Jews run this, and then like, the truth is that the WASPs run that shit, and like the Jews get in where they fit in, right? But they're kind of like the same. They have the same mental outlook and attitude. They're the aristocratic class of white people from the Northeast. They're the individuals who actually run Harvard and Yale and Princeton, right? Like they're the individuals who, like, they hate themselves because they were rich their entire lives, and like they take seriously like all the shit they learned in these, like liberal arts colleges and shit, right? That's what all this nonsense really is, right? And it's not so much that they're fucking evil. It's more along the lines of like, these motherfuckers here, like, they have a belief structure that the rest of us don't understand because, like, we were born fucking poor and we don't get it, like, as a whole, right? Like, we can't hate ourselves because it's like, bro, we worked really hard just to be alive. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where our mentality is.
I'm gonna say something that will probably get me some hate. But from reading some Evola, reading some Moldbug, this type of thing, I have come to the conclusion that modern Judaism and progressive Christianity are effectively the same religion.
You're not wrong. You're 100% right. You are one.
Right, which is not to say that like any sort of Orthodox Christian is the same as any sort of, like, Orthodox in whatever you're talking. It is just a different group in general. They tend to be like rural people. They tend to be ornery. They tend to like be ran by old people who don't really like change, which is really bad if they have bad ideas, but is really good if they have good ideas.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, right? Where like, how like people go, oh man, capitalism and like fucking non-protectionism, it gives us all this like good stuff, and it like the cronyism like always gave you like shit stuff, right? Like the idea that in communism, like you had like one choice, a thing that you were allowed to buy or whatever it was, right? Me and my girl were sitting here talking, and we were talking about when we were in school, and like how like we miss like the old shit that we used to have because like our schools had contracts with, like our local fucking dairy here, right? And the local dairy here, like, it provided like all the milk and like the orange juice and the iced teas and all these type of things or whatever, right? And they all came in this like little fucking cardboard carton, and they were amazing. They tasted fucking just fucking spectacular, right? And today we miss having that shit around, and we hate the corporate fucking consumerist capitalist garbage that we are forced to fucking drink. Like, yo, and all the shit that we have to go buy at the store because there's just no option for our local shit, you know what I mean, that like we used to have, right? Like, as far as like, you know what I mean, like, I don't know, like fucking sodas and stuff or whatever. Like, we were talking about when we were kids, there were no plastic bottled sodas and shit. Like, it just didn't exist. Like, we didn't have it. And it wasn't a fucking thing, right? It was either like you got a can or you got the cardboard motherfucking joint, right? It was one of the two. And today it's just all like fucking plastic shit. And there was no such thing as like bottled fucking water when we were a fucking kid. Like, it's, for us, you know what I mean, like, the shit worked out better than it did for y'all, right? Maybe it's because like of where we're located. Right? Because, like, you know, there's enough people and there's enough population that, like, and they had to make good shit or else they would have been like thrown out in their fucking ass. You know what I mean? I don't know. Go ahead.
I think what that is rather, kind of going back to the mole bug thing, is that it's not so much that it worked differently there. It's more of like you're looking at two different patients. One of them died over the course of, 20 years from the poison, whereas the other died over the course of 5. You're commenting on the strength of the patient beforehand, not the drug, right? And so what I think you're observing there is more of the fact that, like, out here, there is, like, my entire state was settled by progressive Christians, right? Most of the Western states were settled by progressive Christians, right? So, like, all, and because everything had to come along later, it just wasn't as built up as where y'all are at because people haven't been here for as long, right? So
Well, it's more like this, right? So, like, okay, it's a whole way out here, right? Like, our ways of doing like business as a whole is just different. Like, if you go to New Jersey and like you want to buy a tasty cake, right? For instance, something very simple. You have to buy that from a store that has to buy that from a local vendor, right? And the tasty cake that you're going to buy is from a local factory, right? And it has to hire union personnel, right? like we have an entirely different way of doing things, right? Like, if you want to like stand here and buy like I don't know, fucking drinks, like, you have to buy it from, you know what I mean, like a fucking local drink vendor. You can't buy it directly from like Coke or Pepsi and shit, right? It's a different thing. It's a completely different way of doing business altogether out here. Like, it's completely controlled by the local population. So, like, you only have local shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, you were able to get set up before, like, before the Globo Homo, like, hit full swing. Y'all had, like, supply chains and all sorts of bullshit already up and running. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of us out here, the supply chains came at about the same time as the Globo Homo. Right. And so, like, they ran it from the get-go, whereas they have had to, like, try to worm their way in over there. Like, it's the difference between just expanding into a power vacuum and trying to unseat like some sort of hegemonic authority in an area.
Yeah, like all right, so like out here, right? You know, what I mean, like I talked about during the coronavirus, you know, like the big businesses went under, right? Like Domino's and Pizza Hut, right? Like McDonald's, Wendy's, like they went under. My local pizza shops, like they're stronger than ever. The diners, the restaurants, they're stronger than ever. Like they're making way more money than they were before, right? On shorter hours. They started closing down a couple days a week. Like they're like, fuck it, yo, we're good, right? Like we don't like it. Like everybody was like, oh man, it's here to close down the mom and pop businesses. Like nah, like yo, we're good. And then like once they stood there and tried to come through with like the health authorities, like people went with guns at the stores and said, try us, right? Like, you know, when they tried to like fucking shut down our fucking car auctions, we had fucking armed standoffs with the cops, right? And like, yo, they backed down. Like we don't have the same problems as everybody else does. That's why, like, I don't know, like my attitude's different. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're more than willing to stand up for our shit and like we support our shit. They don't. The only thing that has been growing is like Family Dollars and Dollar Generals and shit, and that's only because like the really really big businesses went out, like Boscov's, Bon-Ton, J.C. Penney, fucking Sears, right? And like you know the dollar stores are just taking over their turf because like when there's less places to shop, it's a pain in the ass. But even then, like when like me and my girl were trying to buy like a sectional couch right now, we're trying to find a fucking place to buy one. Everybody's like 5 weeks out, but like we're looking at our like local, like we have local furniture stores, right? Like that are local, right? That buy fucking furniture made in America. Like I don't like. I know that like like y'all are having massive problems out in y'all's neck of the woods. It's different here, but anyway, right? Like I don't know, we somehow got like super duper sidetrack off of economics and shit. But like we're still talking about economics.
Right. And again, the thing that I'll stress is that at least out in our neck of the woods, like supply chains are extremely condensed where you're at because you've got a port right by a bunch of natural resources, right? So, like, if you need some furniture, you've got wood. If you need whatever made out of steel, you got that right there. You got the coal right there. You've got everything right in that one little freaking area. It's basically Germany in miniature, right in the middle of the United States. That is what Pennsylvania is.
Gutenberg said that too. Gutenberg literally said that. He said, like, oh fuck, he said, I've been to Germany. He said, it even looks like it. Right? Like it's literally what this is. It is fucking.
Yeah, so like you start getting outside of that area and you get into areas which are still very good compared to like 90% of the rest of the world, right? It's just not a straight flush if we're going to make a, poker analogy. Like out here we've got like 2 or 3 of a kind. Like we're not out of the running, it's just that we're not automatically winning, right? And so like we have every in my neck of the woods, I am in the middle of the US. We have access to everything that we need. It's just that the fucking supply chains are so long over land that just getting everything set up with as stressed as especially the shipping is right now, that we're getting killed. Like that's the only issue, is the physical distance things are being traversed here. Because yeah, I can go get wood if I need it. I can go get coal if I need it. The issue is they're on other sides of the fucking state. Right? If I'm lucky, usually it's going to be exactly right on the other side of a state border, usually. Which means nothing but I have to pay taxes in 2 states. But, so, the your perspective is just that, like, you're in the catbird seat, and so you're not like, you're in the catbird seat in the catbird seat, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you are, like, America is unique in that America by itself can deal with itself. And then Pennsylvania inside of America is unique because that it can deal with itself inside itself. Um and you've also got it all wired up real tightly in there. It's not based with the rest of America. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get by. It just means that as more local production is required, it means that people need to start learning, well, frankly, what whoever lived here like 300 years ago used to do. Like, I'm not saying we need to go native or anything, but you should probably know at least how they, like, survived in case your power goes out for a couple of
Yeah,
days,
I
right?
don't think you're wrong, right? You know, like, and again, that's kind of where we're at too. Like, like, you know, like, we still, like, this is still like all mountains and shit too. So like, fucking, we still hold on to all of that, right? Completely. Like, you know, like, everybody got wood out in the backyard, or fucking, you know, like, not most of us don't have coal furnaces anymore. There's some of us that still do, right? And those of us who still do, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they still fucking know how to go out. Like, on the side of the highway, you can go out and chip coal off of, like, the side of the fucking road, right? Where, like, they dug the road through and there's, like, fucking anthracite, just veins of it on the side. You know what I mean? You just go out there with a couple of buckets and start fucking, you know what I mean, with a fucking pickaxe and digging the shit out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do that, like, here's the thing. I have seen, and they're used rather extensively in Alaska, but they do have, um like, they've got it set up so that you can run a central heating system off burning wood or coal outside, right?
Yeah.
And so you have the entire effect without the entire house reeking of smoke, which is, I don't know about you, like, I've lived in a wood heated house before, and you know that it's not a huge issue if it's like a cabin, right, where you're just chilling out for like a weekend, or while you're going up there to fish or like whatever, right? But it it gets annoying if you smell like smoke every fucking day. Right, like that's a different issue. I might be a bitch like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, we don't through your clothes and shit. All right. But, like, yo, look. It's been an hour. We're gonna shut this bitch down. I wanted to make some content for the motherfucking channel. Do you want to do the Ukraine thing? Or you gotta go to bed?
Sure, we can pound it out real quick.
Oh, hang on. Let me hit stop and we'll fucking do it.
Separate thing.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, separate.